Welcome back, amazing people. Appreciate you joining me again, following up on part two of microaggressions. We're expected not to be treated the same, but asked to continue and handle it in a way that makes you feel comfortable. So we have to work together to open up that vibe a little bit and start to put the pressure on the people who didn't go through it, but those who need to learn and understand more about it. So that's always my goal. This isn't a finger pointing session. I don't know if anybody can take the complete control of a system that's been broken forever, but we're at a time where we can be more bullish in regard to our approach, and it's going to take everybody realizing that things need to change for them to get better. So let's jump in. The next in the run of microaggressions is telling a racist joke. Really shouldn't need to be talked about out loud. Honestly, just don't do it. Because where you heard it and probably laughed at it, I'm sure that those folks weren't there. Sometimes things that are funny in a group shouldn't be said then, but you definitely don't want to say it in front of black people. It's like kicking you when you're down. We've been through enough. If you really can manipulate the things that we've been oppressed upon and have dealt with into a joke, it really concerns me about where the future is for that person. Even if a black person laughs at it, because at work, see, if you're one of 10 and you don't giggle, then you might be the only one. So sometimes you're misinterpreted because someone that is, there are some black folks that are a little uneducated as well, but there are some that are scared to death to be in a group of people that they don't want to go against. So even if you do see one laugh, a black person or a brown person laugh at a joke, it still doesn't mean that it should be said again. The laughs you hear are not from the ones that are oppressed. The most important part to understand is in this situation, it's the people that hear it and laugh or do not stand up and say anything. You're just as much a part of the problem. Just as much. In all of those scenarios, just one person would say, listen, it's not okay. It's just something we shouldn't be doing. If nothing else, it'll make that person think a little bit differently the next time they decide to want to do it, or at least in the workplace. Here's another that I stress on a regular. Saying all lives matter. Right? Not the statement, because it's true. But saying all lives matter in response to Black Lives Matter is a problem. Let me tell you a little bit about why. All lives do matter. But you were not responding with that before there was visual evidence that blacks were in danger just for walking down the street. Scream all lives matter when you see blacks treated unfairly too. But do not have the audacity to point that out as soon as we start speaking up regarding equality. You were telling us that it was better when we said nothing, or nobody could see any of this stuff going on, because what you're seeing now isn't the first time it's happened, folks. There are stories and more to mourn in regard to tragedy that has occurred. Took the beatings, lack of education, and opportunity and dealt with it. It makes us feel as if it seems as if you liked it better when we could not record what was being done to us. It was easier then to regard it, or disregard it, I should say, if someone brought it up because there was no proof. Even with proof, it seems to be an issue because we put Black Lives Matter there based on what's happening to us, and you decide to remove it or write over it because forbid that we don't think about you in this process or continue to put you up on that pedestal that you've been on. Why would we think about us for a second? Not that history doesn't prove that we need to, or stay focused at least for a little bit. If you have responded with all lives matter after hearing Black Lives Matter, check your privilege. Again, check your privilege and understand why it's okay to focus on Black lives for a while, or why it's not okay to focus on Black lives for a while, since we have proven that we do not matter for hundreds of years. Give us a moment. Show you're with us instead of proving out that you're against us, because if you're not in agreement with why we're speaking out, if you see those things that are happening on a regular basis at the same rates that it does for Black people to white folks, then I'm okay if you push back. But if all of those things are not true, then you're just spiting at the end of the day to start an argument or to make yourself feel better about the privilege that you already have. I could talk about that one forever at the end of the day. But we'll move on, because I think we've gotten a point there. Defining whether we belong in a store on a first-class flight or have the ability to be the same consumer as a white person, the cars we drive or want to, could be a mistake, but the reality is it is this type of implicit bias that needs to be worked on. Because that's not your normal, customer, it doesn't give you the right to stare and follow and insinuate before we're even looking at anything that we're not able to purchase or in the right place or be able to afford. Whatever it may be, you're already making that mark. Similar to driving a nice car. I don't look at that guy. How did he get it? Again, by working 3 times as hard as the person next to them on the road that has the same car. That's the answer I would give. Allowing yourself to become judge and jury in a position of employment where you're supposed to be helping the customers is not fair to those treated unfairly, or the organization that probably makes it clear that it's not okay. Letting yourself believe that most first-class tickets are not Black people, we need to find a way to make ones that do belong, that do feel uncomfortable, so they don't get lost, or so they do not act the same way. Do you ask everyone in line why they're in line for business class? This just proves that no matter what we do that mirrors a successful white person, our invisibility or ability to do so is still always questioned based on bias or based on what you've understood or what your parents or uncles told you growing up, instead of being your own person and finding out who you want to be instead of being the same as everybody else was. And that goes for everyone, no matter what ethnicity you are. Even though we have to work twice as hard to become leaders or sit in business class or drive the nice cars that everybody wants or buy the new houses or the big houses with the big yard for our kids to play in one look, in those situations, you remove all of our hard work and success based on what you believe is right or wrong. When someone tells you that you're so pretty or handsome for a Black person, another really awkward situation, because I know a lot of Black people who just wouldn't have that conversation at the end of the day. So because we're Black, it's out of the norm for us to be beautiful. Because no matter what's taken from us, no matter what we weren't given, no matter the resources that we weren't dealt, you can never take beautiful away from the word Black. We are always going to feel that way about ourselves. We've always had to, because nobody else would. So that makes us strong in that regard. So Black and beautiful is something you hear all the time, because again, the brilliance we provide, the culture that we share, it comes from saying we're going to do more with less and figure out ways to get it done and continue to show people that we are worthy of history. We are worthy of being talked about. We are worthy of at least a few chapters in that big book that you send home with my children on a regular basis. How many people have you told that you're pretty for a white woman? Or good looking for a white guy? It proves that even our beauty and culture is not acknowledged until you choose one or two individuals that fit the mold of what you think beauty is. If you see a statue that you've never seen before, you may say, that's beautiful. Different than what you're used to, but still beautiful. Every time you point out a difference between us, we become even more distant. Attraction is different than beauty. There's beauty in everyone and everything. If you're willing to tuck away those stereotypes, it doesn't mean it is your preference. But remember, acknowledging our beauty without discretion is the right thing to do. Almost how we are forced to acknowledge everything that you believe is beautiful, whether we like it or not. Acting as if we're lucky to be the pretty or good-looking black person is what you've decided we should do in that moment. You complimented one, I'm looking over at 3 or 4 others that I think are beautiful or good-looking. And you've made that remark at the end of the day, so we should feel good about the fact that you said that to us. That you've decided to point out that we're good-looking for a black person is a compliment, when in reality it's obnoxious and racist. Your ability to go to college, further your schooling. When people assume you got into college because of an athletic scholarship. The sad part to this is it's not just a stereotype. You know, we've been eluded by the reality of what hope is and how to prosper. We grow up making sure we hit the field, hit the courts, because society is telling us as young black, brown women and men that athleticism is a place we can strive and succeed. Most of your children want to be lawyers, doctors, police officers, bankers, all of those things that this systemic mess has shown us are not available or culpable as black people. We have to use our athletic prowess to kick the door off the hinges just to have the ability to dream bigger. And then told, once we build the equity to speak up about things that we should, to shut up and dribble. Even if this statement was true, reminding a black person that they have to be a great athlete to go to college or be worthy of a chance is a smack in the face in itself. Because besides that, you have to have money to go to college. You have to access their info to know that it was unaffordable. Or is this the stereotypical answer, right? That the 4 of you may know, or that you've logged in as the reason to do things. You should be an ally and find out why those are predictions, why they're right, and how we can change the narrative. How many of our kids are actually going to be professionals in sports? So if you limit the arrangement of where we can send them, if you limit the possibilities of what they can do, and they don't make it to that next level or make it to college because of sports, that's more disappointment than we have to try to explain to them. I didn't want to be one of the cops when I was young. I wanted to be a robber. Everybody looked at me like I was crazy, but I grew up on the streets where cops weren't good to black folks. And they didn't make an impression. They made sure we understand the impression that they had. So in class in school, I was the only guy on the play deck that raised his hand to be a robber and ran from the police because that made sense to me, and that's all I ever saw other black people do. How about all of the athletic black people that were not lucky enough to get the scholarship or athletic enough, but were brilliant in other ways? The worst part is your reality would be to pick the black guy in gym for your basketball team. But why isn't that person invited over to the neighborhood that you live in on a regular basis? Or maybe ask this question, why can't they live there? Even those things internally will help you understand it. We have to prove our ability to perform to be seen in the ways that you think we should. Even black players at the highest platform are loved while they play and win, but are persecuted when they use that platform to address difficulties to be black and the systemic racism that goes on. We all know the quote, as I said earlier, just shut up and dribble. Because we like you guys or girls when you're quieter and you do what we want you to do. And you pack the stands and get everybody to come and watch and make the owner money that probably doesn't even have conversations at time with the players. Your product is black brilliance. Treat it as so. And treat the people that put that brilliance on the floor for you in a way where they understand they're respected beyond their abilities, but their mind, their thoughts, and their hopes as well. How about when a retail clerk just follows you around the store? As if you walked in with a tail and two heads. Right? They've never seen anything like you. I used to think maybe I was just going to the most expensive part of the store and that's why they were paying so much attention to me until I got older. It's actually one of the most annoying things. Not because of the act itself, but because of the fact that we have to ask ourselves if we're even being paranoid. Right? Are they watching me? Or because that's what you think, right? We're paranoid. No, I had to pay attention to someone else in the moment. But so we start asking ourselves, are they watching me? Are they following me around here? And it's happened multiple times. But we still try to give the benefit of the doubt so that we don't show you that aggressive or loud side. And then you take that as, look at them, exactly who we wanted them to be. Just like you, we can see as well. We are followed, but we see others that walk into the store are not. Although denied in most cases, why do we think it is that it becomes an instinct for some that walk in and not others? With all of the denial, no one can answer that question. What makes that person that's different than most people that can afford to be in here or whatever it may be? What makes you want to watch them more? Was it something someone told you? Was it knowing that normally we don't have the resources to get the things that are in your store, so you think we're going to take them? Find a way to connect. Again, your customers are a part of your business. The idea is to connect with them, not the ones that you feel better or more comfortable around. Even if you experienced it before, which is the best excuse, do we automatically believe that all will? If you're watching the news and a white man steals something, will you then watch every white man that walks into the store? We can always tell we are the minority regardless of where we go, but the audacity to continue to find ways to remind us, even if it's just your actions and direction, to the sales rack the minute that we walk in the door. It feels like a bee sting every single time. Or should I say sunburn when somebody smacks it and it's raw and fresh. Racism in most fashion reminds us of the deeper pain that you feel. And not taking the time to educate yourself about things like this before you allow the stereotype to kick in is why our society is where it is. It's easier for everybody to trend the way others are trending, to believe the masses, to go with the norm, instead of to challenge it. But in every business, in our country, we challenge things all the time to make it better, to build. This is just something that people have been able to shy away from for a long time, and they'll continue to as long as we continue to roll that red carpet out and let them. Here's some in-betweens that when they ask to touch your hair without asking, or they ask to touch your hair or just walk up and touch it without asking. Again, this goes hand in hand with our hair being unprofessional, is what's said at times. First and foremost, it should be out of the norm to even think about touching someone else's hair without asking. But again, they're different. Mohawks, slick back, crew cuts, bowl cuts, a great head of hair, feathered back, whatever you want to call it. I mean, do you not believe that that's just as different for us as our beautiful dreads or corn rolls or different styles that we use? But we don't walk up and start touching your hair. We would do that. We'd have all day to do it. There's so many more in those places than we are. That's what we do all day, just spending time trying to figure out, if you blow drying it or you're throwing a little bit of Prel into the split ends, whatever it may be, it's different than anything that we do on a normal to our hair. So again, differences shouldn't make us stand out or be pointed at unless they're good differences. And again, if you understand the stories behind dreadlocks and corn rolls and things like that, the fact that some of them were hidden maps, in that maze of goodness, you'll understand again, okay, well, they wear their hair like back in the day, they had to do that to hide messages that they needed to get from one to another. They would literally build that out in the corn rolling of the person's hair. So again, without knowing and pointing something out that's different, that's a problem. To us, those hairstyles are beautiful because it's the way we were raised and what we came up around. But we don't look around at everybody else trying to figure out why they wear their hair or their styles the way they do. We're not some specimen or new object that you've become cool with, that you can study. You're never friends enough with someone to ask to do something to them because it's different from you. Remember that if you want to continue to build friends. Our kinky, curly hair, all the words that you guys use, it's beautiful, ethnic, it breathes our culture. A lot of which you have tried in every facet to take away from us or to mock it up on top of just, it's just that ignorant at the end of the day. And again, a lot of our trends end up in your stores and on your children as well. So, if you don't like it on black folks and then a white guy does it, does that make it okay? Is it now okay for us to continue to do what we do because some of you have decided to try it? Telling us our hair is unprofessional for the workplace just tells us you don't think we belong, and we can already look around and see that. You have no idea the differences on why our hair is different and what comparisons to even make. By the way, when did a hairstyle ever change the person's ability to perform? When did that factor actually click in scientifically that says, well, if you have these hairstyles, you're not going to be able to do the job the same way as someone else? Again, be uncomfortable before you become comfortable. When they expect you to be a spokesperson for the entire race, this can be debilitating for a black person. One, we have obviously made some comfortable enough that they believe or that they feel that they are comfortable enough asking us painful questions. If you're a true ally, the person you're asking will know and may be open to having those conversations if it's about growth. If you're looking to grow in the conversation, some are worthy of having. It's unfair for us to have to explain to you the why behind what we faced when it has been evident forever. And people are now realizing it in the most tragic fashion. But we've known for a long time that change needed to be made. Google's used for everything. If you really want to know, do your research. We learn and grow through education, but at times we're afraid to truly be educated about things that we may not really want to know. The other important point here is corporations that do not have the black or brown representation that they should. This leaves even less comfort for the far and few that have to speak up. The one or two senior leaders that are black take the pressure from those that do not know how or who else they can go to. Because we love to talk about retaliation in businesses, and HR has a setup where if something happens, you come to them and it'll be taken care of, and don't worry about retaliation. And my question has always been, well, who wrote the rules for HR people that says this is racist? It can be used as an adverb, adjective, noun, just a verb of a process of what's being done. Who made the rules in HR? And again, predominantly white people in every organization right now, HR-wise. Who made the rules on yes and no's to how black people are treated and whether it's what they think it should be to mirror racism? Where are those rules written? What does have to be done specifically? Because if you tell black people that, maybe they would come to HR more often. But if you tell them that, and then they know people who have said things and nothing's been done of it because they didn't really see anything in the investigation, I still would love to know what that means at the end of the day. Then we're supposed to go back to feeling like we can continue to work under the circumstances that we are because HR said it was okay and they didn't see anything wrong. Well, how do we know that all of them have faced racism or understand it at a level where they can make those decisions that are then even more unfair to the black people that may be bold enough to tell what actually happened, then realize nothing's going to happen, and you truly believe that they are going to come to you again if it happens again? No, they will not, which is why it has to be taken more seriously. And offenders need to understand that they're offending regardless of what happens on the back end. I'm not looking to get people fired. I'm looking to grow people and get them a better understanding of what's right and wrong. But it's just that pure feeling of disappointment again, where you're telling me I have the avenue, but if I go to you, or it's not specific enough, or there are not 3 people that were involved or knew for sure that it happened, well, how often in your organization is there an opportunity for 3 black people to be in a room of senior management and take a strong stance if need be in a situation like that? It's very rare. So again, we get put on the back burner regardless of whether there's rules in place that say you cannot do this in an organization. Build a safe haven for others in your organization. ERGs, developments where people feel like when things impact them and they're the minority, they still have a voice, or they still have a comfortability about who they work with and where they are. Not just for blacks, but for all groups that are oppressed or underrepresented. Like our hair, you do not understand our problems and fears either. We need that support. Give those who are unlike you the courtesy to give others. Build a culture that speaks to growth and opportunity regardless of the past. I'll say this in conclusion. Most of us know that there are not differences. There are perceptions that there are differences. When you take time to get to know people that are different from you, you also recognize that we are the same in a lot of ways. We want the same things. We want the same opportunities. We just have to find a way to be honest about how little we have had compared to you. We want all the life, liberties, and justice that America provides. Accepting our differences and recognizing each other's greatness is the only way to build back up a society that has been broken for way too long. As always, guys, I appreciate you listening. Please check out the other videos. Hopefully you saw part 1 to this video. Black Hope, Black Anxiety, Intimacy, The Real Truth. They will continue based on the 2 books that I wrote and wanting to dig into those and make it a bigger conversation. The Black Handbook for Corporate White America talks about a lot of these things in depth, things to be careful of, ways to approach, understanding us in a different way than what you think you already know. And The Power of the Flower is another book I wrote in regard to intimacy and men and women and women and partners and whatever it may be. The way we treat our person and the way they treat us is always going to be the be-all, end-all. There's a lot in between that we get caught up in and we don't really understand until we get older. So as a broken man very young, I wanted to tell that story in a different way so that it could connect with people. And books are books, stories are stories, but if you have the ability again to bring success to a story at the end of it, then it's a story that needs to be told. Because if you fail forward, others will too. Your failures become other successes. And then we don't have to call it a failure anymore because it built someone else so that it wasn't for them. What we do connects us to us, but the way we connect to other people is by realizing who we truly are, loving ourselves, and then finding a way to love someone else. Because if we don't find a way to love ourselves in totality, it's impossible to love the way we need to when it comes to others. Stay strong, spread love. Hollywood Truth out.